is AEDT 2150U, Digital Technologies and Advanced Teaching Methods. And this is the third of the 3 video capsules that we will be using to discuss assessment and evaluation and advanced teaching methods. Digital technologies can be used for various assessment and evaluation related purposes. On one hand, digital technologies can be used as a tool to create an assignment that will be assessed various times by the teacher, by peers, and through self-evaluations. This replaces the traditional use of paper and pencil tests. For example, students can be asked to create a short video instead of a face-to-face oral presentation. Wikis can be used for a collaborative writing project. Forums or blogs can also be assessed along with all the skills that students develop while using them. These skills relate to pedagogy and human factors and cannot be controlled by technology. On the other hand, digital technologies can be used as an evaluation instrument, and in this case it will assist teachers in correcting, grading, and giving feedbacks regarding tests and assignments. This is what is most often embedded in systems. In both cases, the use of technology can add value to the teaching learning experience for teachers and learners. The first case is more student-centered and more time-consuming. The second case tends to be more teacher-centered and more time-efficient. But there are many variations to these cases. In this video capsule, we will focus on 4 examples of digital technologies that can be used as assessment and evaluation instruments, or both, and we will finish with a reflection on how we can make sure that the evaluation strategies and instruments measure exactly what they are supposed to measure on a repeated measure. For this purpose, let us reflect on the following analysis questions. What are the affordances of technological assessment and evaluation instruments? What kind of assessment and evaluation do these technologies facilitate? How can a teacher create valid and reliable assessment and evaluation instruments? Do digital tools limit the creativity of the teachers when creating the assessment or evaluating instruments, or to the contrary, give them more options and possibilities? Our first example is the multiple choice response tool iClicker. Teachers use iClickers, or what is formerly known as classroom response systems, to engage students in collaborative learning. They also use them as a formative assessment tool. Although many teachers are currently using clickers to give exam, iClickers co-inventor Tim Stelzer, who is a research associate professor of physics at the University of Illinois, is strongly against this practice. When he was asked if he recommended using clickers to give exams, he replied that when teachers start using iClickers for exam, students start seeing them as evaluation tools, whereas their main objective is to give formative feedbacks to students to help them learn. The iClicker kit is composed of the teacher and the student remotes, the iClickers, the receiver, the USB cable connector, and the flash drive with the software. If students are enrolled in different courses with teachers who use iClickers, they may be asked to buy their personal iClicker and then either register it online or in class to their name and student ID. This allows the teachers to keep a record of the students' individual answers while maintaining anonymity among students. Now, how do iClickers work? Teachers project a multiple choice question from their computer onto a wall or screen in the classroom or lecture hall. Students answer the question by clicking on the appropriate button of their choice. The receiver collects votes through wireless signals sent from the students' clickers. Data from individual students is stored through the software. The software produces a histogram showing the distribution of student responses. Teachers get information about what students have understood, detect gaps in their knowledge, and use the results to give immediate feedback to students. The results are also available for later analysis, grading, and exporting to any gradebook software or course management system. On the iClickers official page, we encounter statements from teachers who used iClicker. This quote is an example of what these teachers have said. Because of the ongoing formative assessment, for me, I could spend additional time on areas where students were not scoring well. The clicker addressed many of my pedagogical goals, namely to further engage students in the learning process. Our second example is the quiz and survey authoring software called Respondus. With Respondus, teachers can create and manage quizzes and surveys offline using 15 question types: tables, bulleted lists, imported multimedia, and enhanced formatting such as bold and italics. They can create up to 10 versions of an exam, publish it directly to the learning management system their institution implemented, such as Blackboard, Angel, Desire2Learn, Pearson eCollege, Canvas, Moodle, and other learning systems, or simply print it to paper. Within Respondus, teachers can create their questions bank and access thousands of Respondus compatible publisher test banks. Respondus is a window tool. Apple computer users can run Respondus using window emulation software such as Microsoft's Virtual PC. Our third example is Desire2Learn, which is, as claimed by its creator, a user-friendly, intuitive learning management system with sophisticated course building capabilities, extensive reporting, assessment, and collaboration options, and unparalleled flexibility for matching the learning environment to the unique learning preference of the organization. One of the features of this learning management system is the possibility of creating evaluations within the system. Teachers can use the quizzes tool to manage quizzes that they create, copy, or import. They can create their quiz questions either in the library or by importing them from a text file, Respondus, or any other quiz software. Desire2Learn quizzes tool offer the teachers several question types to choose from, such as true or false question, multiple choice question, multi-select question, matching, fill in the blank, and other. It also allows them to upload multimedia documents and provide hints. When creating the quiz, teachers have many options that include associating the quiz to a grade item, adding a rubric, allowing hints, disabling right-click, disabling instant messenger access, setting restrictions such as setting a release date, password required to access, special access, time limit to the quiz completion, grace period, late submissions, number of attempts, graded attempt, submission views, and other. In addition to the evaluation tools that were created to provide teachers with practical, fast, and reliable solutions to assessment and evaluations design and development, there are a wide variety of digital technologies that could be shaped and used for evaluation purposes, such as e-portfolios, wikis, blogs, and other. Our last example is an online interactive simulation game. Learners are asked to test what they have learned in simulated scenarios. Take a few minutes to try this simulation. You have the link on the screen. And you have the questions that will guide you in exploring this digital assessment and evaluating instrument and reflecting about its effectiveness. The questions are: what are the steps required from the learner to access and go through the tests? What information is available to the learner while taking the tests? Did you notice that the designers included elements that are not related to the objective of the tests, like turning out the light, the fire alarm? In your opinion, why did the designers add these elements? And do you consider them as distractors? Why? How did the result been presented? In your opinion, is this simulation game an assessment or an evaluation instrument, or both? And why? What are the affordances of simulation games when used as assessment and evaluation instruments? And how can we use this instrument in other contexts? In other words, in your opinion, when can we use simulation games to assess and evaluate learning? The question that we should ask now relates first to validity And the question is, how do teachers choose the right assessment and evaluation instruments to measure what they need to measure? And second, to reliability. What is the likelihood that these instruments would measure what they are supposed to measure on a repeated basis? Assessment and evaluation are always sensitive issues, and while creating instruments, designers and teachers need to be aware of all variables that could play in favor or disfavor or at the expense of students' particular situations, prior knowledge, experiences, and other. To better understand the sensitivity of creating proper assessment, let us examine Lauren's story, a very simple story that is strikingly shocking. Lawrence was a 4-year-old boy. In order to conduct an evaluation, his teacher distributed sheets of paper on which there were two shapes. The first shape was a circle. The second was the usual star pentagon. He asked the children to color in the star in yellow. Lawrence colored in the star and the circle. His teacher was shocked by his response and considered that Lawrence had difficulties in identifying shapes. He asked for the head teacher's advice, who decided to approach Lawrence to ask him why he had colored in both shapes. And Lawrence said, "Well, I colored in the star because it's a star. But the sun is also a star, and we all know that when we draw it, we add rays. But those rays are not real. The sun is a circle." The head teacher later found out that Lawrence's father was an astrophysicist, and that Lawrence had been looking at the stars with his father's telescope. Moral of the story: are we always evaluating what we need to evaluate? Are we using the right instruments? Are the results accurate? How can we ensure that our instruments are valid and reliable? Relevant and effective assessments and evaluations use a variety of instruments, balance the levels of complexity, and address only the defined instructional objectives or competencies being evaluated. The synthesis questions. For us, the clicker isn't the whole game. It's a piece of the puzzle. What does STELTHER mean? And does this saying apply to all educational technologies? Why? Many educational technologies are out there, created with the goal of giving students a better learning experience and allowing them to achieve success. But what happens to students' learning when teachers are using great technologies with traditional educational approaches? How do iClickers, responders, desire to learn, and the online interactive simulation games differ? Can you imagine effective use of these technologies for evaluation and assessment?